Hi everyone, and welcome to a new video on the MeTech channel. This is guest 75 again, and today I'm bringing you a bit of an exclusive. I'm having a first peek of the final and production ready new Citroën C5 Aircross, model year 2025-2026. A very interesting car, might I add, one that has piqued my interest for quite some time. So sit back and relax as we take a look at this nice vehicle.
C'est une longue route sur les chemins du paradis. La terre promise est loin, derrière le béton gris. Tour de tour, sont là pour jouer des tours. Cours pour sortir de la cour, il faut montrer les dents. Faire tout rentre dedans pour sortir du rang. Sinon flanc, tu demandes à Dieu, mais Dieu n'est plus là. Tu demandes à Dieu.
It's pretty interesting, but let's start with a little brief history on this model. I first ran into this model in its concept form at the January Auto Show in Brussels. I was very intrigued and captivated by the design concept. It was beautiful, sleek, sporty, and very daring. As I'm not particularly a Citroën fan, I was very surprised by this. How could such a brand, known for rounded corners and bulbous designs, soft designs, have something so striking, so aggressive, and so inspiring? That actually set me up to huge expectations around this model. If we position this car, it is actually operating in a C SUV segment, akin to cars like the Hyundai Tucson, Kia Sportage, Volkswagen Tiguan, Nissan Qashqai, just to name a few. Also, it is of course a Citroën, and that means it's part of the Stellantis Auto Group, a brand that I actually have a quite positive experience with, as I have been driving the 208, a model introduced in 2019, for a couple of years, and it was a very positive experience. I've also already on this channel reviewed some of the infotainment systems on the Peugeot 3008, which is actually this car's stablemate, based on the same new Stellantis platform. And on that car, I find the design also very nice, and also it has a very well designed interior, with a nice infotainment system. With all that said, let's look at this intriguing design for a second. As you can see, I have the car in the Alkanite white color with the black roof option. This is actually the highest trim level, which is the max, and I must say it is quite a looker. It is very stylish, aggressive, and in terms of size it sits in between the Peugeot 3008 and 5008 and shares similar dimensions to the Opel Grandland, the third car on the same platform. Its design elements that really intrigue me are the aggressive bonnet design, the nice headlights, but the master and stealer of the show is actually just like on the concept, and they've kept those elements from the concept, the rear lights, which are designed as little wings on the back of the car. They make the design very striking and very aggressive. Also, the top roofline, which slightly slopes down at the end, also makes for a very nice and captivating space age-like design. All in all, I think even the rims on this car are very nicely designed. On the Max edition, which this one is, the highest trim levels, you get 20 inches. The other models go from down to 18 up until 19 and these 20-inch rims. I have a couple of shots of the business edition, which has slightly different rim design and 19-inch alloys, but I must say even that one looks quite nice. All in all, when driving this car, I had quite a few people look at this car, and I must say it really rivals the 3008 in terms of a striking design. And although Stellantis had a bit of a negative publicity these couple of times, I do have to say that the Peugeot 3008 and now the C5 Aircross really lay down the foundation that these cars are of a particularly high quality, especially for the price and positioning in the market. I, for instance, find this car far more appealing than something much more expensive than a Volkswagen Tiguan. And we'll chime in a bit later on that when we go and see the interior, design, fit and finish. So, let's take a look at this interior. Of course, there have been many previews out of this car, particularly the English press was already present at the Paris launch event, where this car actually first debuted. But those were pre-production models, and this, as you can see, is a fully license-plated Dutch model. The first interior, of course, that we're going to take a look at is this Max Edition interior, which has the white finish. It is a very soft interior and very comfy and really feels like your living room. That was also part of the design philosophy around this interior, and as you can see, it is very, as the English say, plush and soft. But the biggest thing that I noticed, especially from driving a Tesla at the moment, is the comfort of the seats. They are extremely comfortable and very nice. And just like its stablemate, the Grandland from Opel/Vauxhall, it's got the German AGR certification for very comfortable and enabling seats. But I do have to say, even from those seats in the Grandland, which are pretty good, this is quite a step up, as they're even softer with more options. And something I haven't seen since the M5 from BMW, which is a very expensive car, is that the seats on the sides can actually fit your back and hug you and keep you into place. And that really adds to even more comfort. Looking at the rest of the interior, we've got a nice waterfall display, which again is very interesting because this car is of course related to the Peugeot 3008 and Opel Grandland. Yet the infotainment screen is completely different, as it is a portrait screen with integrated parts for the climate controls, something neither of these other models have. In front of you, you have a 10-inch instrument cluster, which we'll come back to in a little bit. In front of you, you'll find a 13-inch waterfall display, as Citroën calls it, which also happens to be the largest infotainment screen within the group. Again, something very interesting, because usually what we see, especially if we compare it to the Volkswagen Group, is similar displays across all models, with the same sizes and the same controls. But Stellantis enables its brands to do different screens if they want to. So as you can see here, for example, the Peugeot E3008 has a full white iCockpit interior and infotainment, integrated all into one. If you compare it to the Grandland, they have a very wide central screen of 16 inches in total, but it is very wide, so the aspect ratio is completely different from what you can see on the screen. Also, it has a very big head-up display unit, which all the other brands don't have, while having a very small and thin, narrow digital cockpit and display in front of the driver. So again, looking at this infotainment display, let's see how Apple CarPlay looks on it. As you can see, Apple CarPlay is really in a portrait, more in a square aspect ratio as compared to the other aforementioned models. The funny thing is, with Android Auto, you can actually really see when a screen is landscape orientated or a portrait. For example, in a Renault, which also has a portrait screen, you can see that the images and graphics are similar in the Citroën. While if we switch back a bit to the E3008, you can see that the aspect ratio is more widescreen and thus completely different. The other model actually in the Stellantis group with the same platform is the new Jeep, which I've also already viewed. And actually the only similarity that the Jeep brings compared to the Citroën is the 10-inch screen in front of the driver. Speaking of this screen which I mentioned before, what is very nice is, of course, this is again the same platform as the 3008. And that means that you have fully integrated phone graphics. So, for example, if we use Waze to navigate, you can actually see that Waze both on Android and on iPhone is supported on the instrument cluster binnacle display in front of the driver. That is a very nice and convenient feature to have, and is only seen on much more higher-end models like BMW and also the Volvo Polestar cars, as they all run Android. Android Automotive, which enables this feature. So it is nice to see that even a car that doesn't have that, like the Stellantis STLA platform cars, do have similar features and very nice integration. So as you can see, when we use Android, we also get the ability to use Google Maps, and on both iOS and Android, you can actually use Waze. And actually, a small update on the Waze on the info binnacle display, as now it also displays the speed trap cameras with nice graphics, which wasn't present the first time that I saw this feature on the Peugeot 3008, which is also a separate video on my channel. So on that is also a very nice upgrade, and it's so incredible to see that even though it is already a very special feature, it gets upgraded over time. So actually I would have to refer you to other videos that will really dive into the driving dynamics of this car. But what I can say from my brief drive with this car is that the steering is very light, which is a bit off-putting at first, but it's actually adaptive steering. So when you actually speed up, like on the highway, or drive at higher speeds, the steering becomes a little heavier, which is nice. And also I have to say, it does take getting some used to, but that happens relatively fast. And I also have to say the driving dynamics, of course, are much less sporty than its Peugeot counterpart or the cars in the segment. But in return, you get a lot of comfort. And I do have to say, this one has the extra hydraulic bump stops, and over bumps, I can really tell the difference. It is extremely comfortable, and that is, of course, even more increased with the nice seats that I mentioned. Also, the infotainment system generally feels a little bit more further on from the Peugeot 3008, which of course also gets its updates, but it feels very smooth and has a lot less bugs, as some did occur on the 3008 at the time. Also, other reviewers have taken note of this. So again, I am very pleased to be one of the first, if not the first, to give you a preview or / review of this car production ready, as this is the car you will be getting when you order it. As a final say, I have to say mighty and final thanks to Van Beek car dealership in Breda, which are the first in the country of Holland to have this car in stock and for you to drive and to see. Like I said, I have been reviewing the Max model, But here are some shots of the business model, and also some shots with the darker interior. That also looks nice, but I do have to say the white comes over a little bit more luxurious. What's also nice actually as a last tidbit on the interior is the nice ambient lighting, which again differs very much from the other models on the same platform, as this one has the tweeters actually not in the front pillars but as separate sidebars on the overall dashboard. I do have to say the funny stuff is that usually the Peugeot is usually a bit higher up in hierarchy, but with the Citroën I must say that it feels very close to one another. Only the top bit of the Citroën is a little bit harder, but that is pretty much it. All in all, I hope you've enjoyed this video, and let me know in the comments if you have any questions on this model, as I find it very interesting and very encouraging to come from Stellantis. Also, the Jeep is actually one that I want to check out next, as I was at the preview event, but that wasn't really a particularly production ready model, as that was also a pre-production model. But even that car as well, I can say, has its own unique identity. And I do have to compliment the Stellantis group for giving the brands more individualism than other brands that have similar models. Also, if we look at the market, I do have to say that these SUVs from Stellantis are very appealing when compared to, for example, the Hyundai group, as I particularly really like the phone integration on these models. This was actually a shot I made on the Kia EV3 at the start of this year, and you can see that it doesn't really have the fully integrated phone maps on the instrument binnacle cluster in front of the driver, something a lot of Asian brands share with it, and that is something I really miss on those models and really feels like they're a bit behind on this, or rather, the Stellantis group on the STLA platform cars are a bit ahead of the curve. As I've noted from other reviewers that even the new Volkswagen platforms, like the new Audi PPE platform and the Audi and the Volkswagen EVs, the ID models, really lack the ability to show maps, even inbuilt maps, on their instrument binnacle cluster displays, which is ironic since their group was actually the pioneers, with Audi introducing it way back in 2015. Again, I'd like to thank you for watching, and hopefully I'll see you soon on the next video. I will keep you guys updated when it is. For now, all I have to say is cheers, and I hope to see you next time.